I am Prerna Chaurasia from Newgen, and I'll be moderating today's discussion on a topic that is shaping the future of payer operations in the United States. Reimagining payer operations faster, leaner, ROI-driven with AI. The healthcare industry is undergoing remarkable change. At the same time, AI and intelligent automation have moved from concept to real-world operational deployment. I am joined by two healthcare experts today, Alex Erlewine. Hi, Alex. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Prerna. And hello, everyone. I'm Alex Erlewine. I've spent nearly 2 decades working across corporate strategy, business operations, and capital planning at large healthcare organizations and national payers, including companies like Aetna, Coventry, Highmark, WellCare, and Centene. Throughout my career, my role has been to help executive teams make smart operational investments, building the business case, securing the capital approval, and then staying accountable for delivering and tracking ROI, return on investment, after implementation. That work has spanned payer operations, regulatory compliance, administrative cost reduction, and workforce optimization, where success is measured not just by deploying a technology, but by improving cycle times, audit outcomes, and financial performances. Today, I focus on helping health plans operationalize AI and intelligent automation in a way that delivers measurable ROI, strengthens compliance, and creates sustainable operating models, not just pilots. I look forward to that discussion here.
Thank you, Alex, and welcome to this webinar. And Anurag Sharma, who leads complaints, appeals, and grievances for Newgen Software. Welcome, Anurag.
Thank you, Prerna. Hello, everyone. I am Anurag Sharma, Manager Information Systems at Healthcare Center of Excellence at Newgen Software Corporations. I lead our healthcare transformation initiatives and product innovation efforts focused on modernizing payer operation, complaints, appeals, and grievance space. Over the past decade, I have worked closely with national payers to reimagine their complaints, appeals, and grievance processes, helping them achieve tangible outcomes in operational efficiency, compliance, and member experiences.
Welcome, Anurag. Today, Alex and Anurag will try to break down for us on what's working, what's scalable, and how payers are achieving measurable ROI using AI-driven transformation. Thank you both for being here. And for our audience, we will have a Q&A round at the end. Please continue to share your questions in the chat by talking about how over the past few years, payer organizations have been under immense pressure due to rising administrative costs, tighter compliance requirements, and demands for faster turnaround. From your experience, what are the biggest operational pain points that still hold payers back today?
Absolutely, Prerna. The challenges are very real and deeply rooted in how payer operations have evolved. If I were to summarize, I highlight 4 key operational pain points that continue to hold payers back. One is your fragmented systems and disconnected workflow, which includes member data, claims, and authorization details living across multiple platforms, be it your complaints, appeals, and grievances, your CRM, case management, and so on. I believe this fragmentation means even simple actions like verifying eligibility or pulling case history require multiple logins, manual lookups, or data reconciliation. So the result is always a slower turnaround time and higher error rates. The second could be a process which is very manual heavy. So in that, I believe a large portion of work is still done manually. For example, reading letters, classifying cases, typing notes, generating correspondences. This not only increases administrative burden, but also creates inconsistency in decision-making and documentation quality. The next one I believe could be your ever-changing regulatory landscape. In that, with CMS and NCQA frequently updating compliance frameworks, payers always struggle to adapt quickly. Even most legacy systems requires IT intervention for even small rule change, making this very compliance reactive and not proactive. And the last one could be your workforce burnout and knowledge strain. Depending upon the complexity of cases and lack of intelligent support tools, it leads to fatigue among caseworkers. When experienced staff leaves, knowledge is not always captured effectively, leading to rework and inconsistent outcomes. So, if I were to summarize in short, pairs are operating in a high pressure environment with outdated tools. The need of the hour is agility, transparency, and intelligent automation to bring everything together.
Thank you, Anurag. Alex, would you like to add what you are observing on the ground?
Absolutely, Purna. Everything Anurag covers is exactly what we're seeing across the market, and I'll add one more dimension. The operational cost of fragmentation has never been higher. And it's funny, I've seen top executives, senior vice presidents, use the phrase, our infrastructure is held together with bubblegum and popsicle sticks. And that's what we talk about when we're saying operational cost of fragmentation. It's years, sometimes decades, of patches, APIs, and framework that keeps the systems running but doesn't leave room for innovation. So what we'll do now is across the health plans that I've supported, we'll outline the three biggest pain points. The first one here is operational drag from legacy intake and review processes. So most health plans are still operating with 15, 20-year-old workflows, and for that matter, core operational platforms. The case owners jump between the screens, the source systems, PDFs, SharePoint folders, and email trails just to begin meaningful work. I'll just add that Anurag and I have seen it all in trying to somewhat lasso these business processes and bring them into one single pane of glass. Even highly trained staff spend the first several minutes of every case just reconstructing the context, and that adds thousands of hours a year that is lost. The second one would be inconsistent documentation and audit exposure, which in a day of agentic AI is just no longer acceptable. The plans think that they're compliant. When you dig in and start reading these notes, you see them being inconsistent, missing rationales, manual letter edits and gaps, and for that matter, sometimes it's missing altogether. And we see gaps in this case processing, which are not acceptable in our audit environment. These inconsistencies are a major reason that we see financial penalties being issued from CMS and other regulators, and we see a degradation occurring in STAR's performance. Finally, I'll mention the workforce turnover and training burden, which Anurag mentioned briefly as he talked about that tribal knowledge. Case operations today rely heavily on institutional memory. When these experienced staff leave, we lose productivity up to 40%. And it can sometimes be more, depending on the lack of training materials that may exist in some of these specific business areas. These days, AI isn't just about automation. It's about capturing the tribal knowledge and making it operational so plans aren't dependent on a shrinking workforce, and might I say, so you can also layer them in from a quality perspective and have the AI really monitoring the staff on an ongoing basis, not just once a month or a few times a month. Overall, the challenge isn't that the systems are just outdated, it's the operating model tied to those systems can't scale to the regulatory and volume pressures that we face today.
So, from this explanation, I can say that nowadays AI is positioned as the cure for administrative overload. But how does it actually reduce the burden? Could you share some examples where you have seen automation or AI help payer teams shift focus towards high-value work and better member engagement?
That's a great question, Prerna, because AI values truly comes alive only when it directly reduces effort and improves experience. So let me share how this plays out in real operations. Starting from the first one, which I believe would be your intelligent document classification. In that, AI can automatically identify the type of incoming correspondences, whether it's a complaint, appeal, grievance, or a simple inquiry, by analyzing layout, keywords, and context. This removes hours of manual triage. We have seen classification accuracy improves to 95% plus, cutting triage time by 70%. Your second one could be your automated case pre-filing. So in that, once AI identifies a case type, it can auto-extract member details, dates, plan type, and provider info from integrated systems. That means caseworkers start their review with a fully populated form instead of a blank screen. The next could be your generative AI, which can be used for summarization. Now we have generative AI models that read through long medical records, or denial letters and provide concise summaries, highlighting key clinical and denial reasons. This reduces review time dramatically. We have seen from 30 minutes to under 10 minutes in some of the cases. Your intelligent correspondence generation could be your next point, where AI-driven template can draft CMS compliant letters automatically, pre-filled with case context and regulatory languages. Staff just reviews and approves, saving effort while ensuring compliance. And the last one, which is most important, is your human-in-the-loop design, where importantly, these automations are assistive, not replacements. AI does the heavy lifting while human validates, ensure judgment, provide empathy and accuracy, always stay intact. So the net impact of that could be staff spends less time on repetitive work and more on meaningful engagement, resolving complex cases, improving member satisfaction, and ensuring compliance integrity throughout the process.
Okay. Alex, would you like to add to this?
Absolutely. Really what we're seeing on the ground is that AI is making the biggest impact, not when it's a standalone tool, but embedded directly into the workflow where the staff already live. And I've used this analogy that it's like purchasing a gym membership and just expecting to lose weight. And what we really see with some of these AI tools is that they're purchased and sometimes put on a shelf to serve as an afterthought or an add-on. At Newgen, one of the big differentiators that we've taken is we have an AI-first mindset. It moves away, and this requires discipline in designing these products. When we say embedded directly into the workflow, we say, let's get away from what used to be called the minimum viable product, which really meant, let's take something that's almost as bad as the system you already have and call that sufficient, right? That doesn't mean that you have to have a big bang or a big explosion in the system transition so that it never comes to life, but it means making some very discrete decisions on what areas would AI benefit your operation. And let's take those first because we'll start seeing that work reduce. Let's break a few different operational examples. And the first one we've talked about a bit so far today is AI for case intake normalization. So we know before AI, staff would manually read through member letters, faxes, email submissions to decipher intent. Now our AI models can not only standardize that intake from all channels, not forgetting about an inbox or a portal, not just classify it, but also extract the why, the medical context, the regulatory attributes, and again, the sentiment, meaning we can classify things today that are not just an appeal, but also find a grievance embedded, create two separate cases, pre-populate them, acknowledge them, and have them waiting for a caseworker to start their work. And in many cases, we've already identified what is the main theme, what are the issues that are within, and what are the next steps that that worker needs to take. Next, we'll talk about AI-assisted medical and administrative review, because we know this is where some of our most expensive workers process these cases, like with medical directors or nurses. Let's take, for example, Part C appeals or Part D redeterminations. Reviewers often spend 60 to 70% of their time sifting through clinical notes. They look at summaries from other clinicians, sometimes from different states and God only knows of different specialties. They look at denial language that vary from market and product. And then finally, maybe even look at, let's call it formulary or benefit rules. What we can do is we can use generative AI, and already do today within our Newgen products, to digest those documents and surface the clinically relevant storyline, enabling reviewers to spend their time applying judgment rather than hunting for information. And these type of large language models that we can embed within the generative AI go beyond something you would find in just simply ChatGPT, because it's taking things like legal packs or clinical packs and informing the generative AI even further. Last thing I'll mention is AI for CMS compliant letters, and this can be letters in the legacy sense or in the new sense with digital delivery. We see huge, enormous ROI in this space for a few different reasons. Number one, we know, and I know Anurag and I have seen folks going onto SharePoints and being required to select from hundreds or thousands of letter templates to try to start constructing their own manual letters. And what AI does is it selects that right template. it inserts the correct regulatory paragraphs, timelines, clinical references, and plan-specific language and branding, and ensures that there's no inconsistencies before the letter not only reaches a member, but before it's actually sent to the print vendor. What we see here is fewer reopens, stronger audit scores, and much higher member satisfaction. We're also seeing an increase in the STARS performance because we're getting to the right decision the first time. Ultimately here, the real value isn't just automation. It's a shift in how our teams spend their time. Instead of being data gatherers and reviewers, they're able to actually have the information they need right in front of them and go right to what we need them for, which is making the decisions.
So it seems like the biggest blockers is fragmented data and legacy workflows. So Alex, how can AI-driven orchestration bridge these silos and create a unified operational view?
Yeah, it's a great question because this is where transformation truly happens. And it doesn't mean just reinvent the same wheel, but to transform it. As I mentioned earlier, fragmentation is the number one reasons payers struggle with speed and accuracy. And I mentioned it as bubblegum and popsicle sticks and APIs and technical debts. There's a million words for it, but what it is a constant delaying of fixing your foundation and continuing to build upon it, knowing that foundation needs to be transformed. So what our AI-driven orchestration does essentially rebuild the operation nervous system without needing to rip out those legacy systems. And I've seen within my career, decade-long projects that are really focused on swapping out a legacy system. And we know there's a dependency on those legacy systems throughout the operation that it takes decades sometimes to switch these out. So the way that Newgen, for example, or systems like ours work is as a single pane of glass. Instead of bouncing between systems, claims, membership, provider database, what we can do is with simple APIs out of the box, go and find that information and bring it into the system. It means you don't have to replace a legacy claims system right away and still have that same level of user experience and efficiency by overlaying our platform over that. It's going to pull that data and present it not only contextually, but we're going to tie it to the case. We're going to summarize it, and we're going to even tell you what to do next, right? And that's what we call AI-driven decision support. So as a reviewer moves through the case, the AI agent is surfacing what they need, such as missing data. We've talked about data population in a way that goes far beyond simple web services, because our AI can actually start finding data. Well, now once they found a piece of data, that connects another dot. So you find this level of sub-processing that takes place behind the scenes that continues to erode the amount of time that a reviewer spends in a case. It goes to the relevant historical cases, right? How many times have you seen complaints come through about, and they're actually describing how many times they've reached out to the health plan and said the same thing. This can be identified and flagged by the AI, ensuring that you don't escalate to something like a CTM or a regulatory complaint. Plan rules, as what we've mentioned, vary not only from state to state, but from product to product. Medicare, Medicaid, ACA, they're all different, and you can never expect anyone to memorize them, nor should you have them needing to go out and hunt and peck or follow some decision tree or go. And I've even seen, and I'm sure you have as well, Anurag, workers using the public websites of a health plan to find plan materials themselves, right? As though they are a member in a third party. Our AI agents can go and find it, pull it into the case, read it, and tell you what to do, right? That's what we're trying to get to when we say automation, not just extraction and pulling it into the case. SLA risk indicators, this is so much far-fetched beyond a simple alert saying you've got 4 hours left on a case. We now have AI embedded workforce management, where we can start to see when a caseworker is not just one case is approaching the timeline, but all of their cases are moving, right? So when we find that, we can discover staffing shortages or the need to update the case assignment to ensure that someone's not becoming overloaded, right? And worst case, not noticing it until the case goes out of compliance. compliance checkpoints, and this is something that I think many of our customers have appreciated, and it's this concept that a business rule just doesn't generically apply. A business rule applies at certain points of time. Sometimes it's at the intake, sometimes it's at the time of generating a letter. Did they pick the right one? We're able to really move through that and ensure that not just the right work is taking place on these cases, but it's taking place at the right time. And as we mentioned, predicting the case outcomes, which kind of sounds benign at first, but what that means, and it could be rephrased into predicting the correct case outcome, avoiding mistakes. So this AI is able to not just do the job, but to surface it in a way that helps someone that's such as a reviewer understand where they should go and why. Because at the end of the day, if a system says, approve this, that's not sufficient. It needs to say, based on these regulations, based on this standard of care, based on this Medicare coverage guideline specifically. This eliminates the detective work that consumes so much of our staff's time. The last thing I'll say is really this whole concept of closing the loop with automation. Our system really serves as an orchestration layer. It doesn't just display information, it triggers the right actions. And this is where AI comes in the most useful manner, so heavily in the intake, such as with routing, right? So when we say we can discover what a case is by reading it via AI, that also ensures that we can say, we know where it needs to go. We know where to send it. That's what we call routing. Many of the non-compliance that occurs today is from cases getting misrouted to a department. It sits there for 2 months, it goes out of compliance, and then it goes to the right place. We can avoid that. Escalations, we can read those and discover them before they take place. Correspondence workflows, meaning not just triggering a letter, but knowing that you first have to acknowledge that. After 15 days, you need to send a status update saying we need more time. At the end, send a resolution. It's a workflow, it's a journey of communications that keep the member or provider engaged. Quality check and audit logging, right? That's done automatically by these systems today, meaning that not only should we log what took place, but we should be able to determine did the wrong thing take place. And let's not wait until a post-close review 3 months later. Let's catch it while the case is still open and have the right result take place. So what we're saying here, for the first time, many health plans see their ecosystem operate as a coordinated, intelligent workflow instead of disconnected sets of tasks. And what this means is orchestration turns siloed operations into end-to-end, intelligent-driven journeys. And that's where you see the biggest step in the change in efficiency and accuracy, as we mentioned, without ripping out legacy systems.
Exactly, Alex. I agree with you that fragmentation is one of the biggest challenges we see across health plans. And this is where AI-driven orchestration and AI agent completely changes the game. That's how I believe one could be your unified orchestration layer. So think of orchestration as a layer that connects claim, member, provider, and complaints appeals and grievances systems without needing to replace them. It creates a single operational view of every case, so user can see all of the interactions, decisions, and related documents in one place. Next could be your context-aware AI agents. These agents act as a virtual coworker which are embedded into the workflow. They continuously monitor the case queue, fetch data from integrated systems. They even suggest next steps and even highlight missing information or compliance gap. And just like you mentioned, Alex, predictive and prescriptive insights are one of the key areas where AI agents can analyze historical data to predict bottlenecks. For example, which cases are likely to breach the SLA or which provider have frequent escalations. These predictive resources allocation allow us for a better management visibility and help us to allocate resources in a better way proactively. Next could be your continuous learning loop, which is one of the most important area where these agents improve over time. They learn from user actions and outcomes so that the system becomes smarter and smarter the more you use it. So the result is a connected, intelligent workspace where human and AI collaborate, not just to automate, but to achieve faster, error-free, and transparent operations.
Okay, this was very insightful. Now let's move to a short spotlight section. I want to invite you both to share one key concept tied to faster, leaner, and ROI-driven operations and how Vision is helping leading health plans achieve the ROI from their investments.
Sure, Prerna. I like to spotlight complaints, appeals, and grievance AI agents. One of the most impactful solutions we have implemented across payer clients recently. So let's start from the end-to-end AI enablement, where the agents manage the full lifecycle of a case from intake and classification to summarization and correspondence generation. Each agent over here has a specialized function. For example, classification agent, summarization agent, compliance agent, etc. As the name suggests, they do their work accordingly. Your next could be your rapid ROI. So health plans use complaints, appeals, and grievance AI agents, and they can expect 40 to 50% faster turnaround times. They can expect 25% improvement in compliance accuracy and up to 35% reduction in manual effort. So rapid ROI through AI is one of the key features. The next would be a solution which is built on CMS and NCQA compliance standards. So these agents, they come pre-trained on healthcare specific vocabularies, ensuring the output aligns with CMS and NCQA documentation standards. Next is your human oversight. So agents handle the repeatable work, but every output goes through a human validation loop, striking the perfect balance between automation and accountability. And as in when we use these agents, it leads to continuous value expansion. So these AI agents can scale to other areas as well, like utilization management, prior authorization, or appeals, amplifying the ROI exponentially as in when payer organizations use them forward. So in simple terms, complaints, appeals, and grievance AI agents convert paid operations from manual and reactive to intelligent and more predictive in nature.
For my spotlight, I want to focus on something that often gets overlooked when discussing AI, and that's the power of intelligent orchestration, right? When we think about a business process management system, often folks think of that as something that just goes out, scrapes some information, you can attach your documents to it, maybe it'll send a letter for you, and there's a rules engine that supports it, right? That's 1990s to the 2000s, early 2000s, right? What we see today across health plans is that they already have multiple systems. They have CAG platforms, they have claims engines, care management tools, document repositories, CRMs. And the challenge isn't a lack of technology, it's that none of these systems talk to each other in a minimum meaningful way, right? So this is where I want to talk about Newgen's real differentiator, and it's our ability to create that end-to-end AI-driven operational fabric across all those systems. This is the difference between a legacy business process management system that would maybe one time or at certain trigger points go out and look for a refreshed piece of data. Instead of staff bouncing between 5 or 6 applications just to complete one case, the orchestration, yes, brings all that together and applies intelligence at each step. You heard me mention earlier the importance of not only knowing the flow that the case should be going through, but what things, discrete elements, and that could be a combination of data being populated, something being returned by somebody, a trigger, a timer, an action, whatever that thing is. We want to know all throughout the workflow, are things moving along as they should? Not right up until, as I mentioned earlier, 4 hours before the case goes out of compliance. I want to know if 50% of the compliance time frame is done, is 50% of the work done. What we do here, by embedding that intelligence at each step, we ensure that the compliance and the business process becomes intelligent. It also is where ROI becomes tangible. What we have seen in our demonstrations, and you can go out to our website and calculate your own ROI with tools that we have out there, that we have designed these calculators by doing time studies, right? What we've seen is a 30 to 50% faster case turnaround. We've seen significant reduction in rework that's both costly and also has often some type of downstream impact, such as if you denied something inappropriately the first time and then correctly on the second time, that doesn't mean that you get out of jail free card, right? You still messed that up the first time. Dramatically improved audit readiness, right? You're not sweating when the audit notice comes. Maybe you're sad of how many hours you'll spend, but you have confidence going into that. And finally, more consistent case outcomes, regardless of who's doing the work. And I know as a business owner, going up through director, VP, and when I was in audit, sometimes you would see the name of the person that worked the case, and you would instantly maybe think, or the opposite. You knew that this is one of your strongest people, and this case should be good. AI is going to normalize that work effort across people by ensuring that that work is taking place at the right step, regardless of who's doing the work. And the beauty of this orchestration is that it doesn't require a rip and replace. That's what you'll hear me keep saying. No one wants to hear, yes, you can have our system after you switch out your claims system. Well, hopefully 5 years, you're still at the same company, right? No, we are able to do that now, layer that intelligence on top of the systems you already own, and accelerate that adoption, even if you've got that system planned for, let's call it sunsetting, or winding it down in 2 years period of time. The low-cost integrations that we can do here at Newgen allow us to say, let us be part of that transformation. We can layer in on top of that old system, and as you have the new system come underneath, it's seamless to the user.
Okay, so that explains the dire need of AI for health plans. But let's talk about the outcomes, the part everyone wants clarity on. How do payers quantify ROI from AI-driven operations?
That's a great question, Prerna. We hear it almost every executive conversation. As per me, the key is to measure ROI across 3 dimensions. One is operational, second is financial, and third one is compliance. So let's discuss them one by one, starting from the operational ROI. So I believe operational ROI measures turnaround improvements, reduction in manual touch points, and increased case throughput. Coming to financial ROI, it means reduction in effort, rework, and penalties due to compliance errors. And third one being the most important, which is the compliance ROI, which is improved member satisfaction scores, star ratings due to faster and clearer communication, fewer escalations and reopens, directly correlate with better audit experience. Real-time tracking and automated audit trail ensures zero missed deadlines, preventing cost penalties. So ROI isn't just about cost saving, it is more about transforming how efficiently and confidently payer operation runs.
Yeah, and I echo a lot of what you said, because when I speak with healthcare executives about ROI, I focus on 2 things: what's measurable and what's meaningful. Some people call it qualitative versus quantitative, right? So the first one we'll talk about is cycle time reduction, right? So that is something you can count. When AI removes that intake, refill, evidence gathering that we've just been talking about, even summarizing, in some cases making a preliminary decision to be reviewed by a person, cycle times will drop by 30 to 50%. What does that mean? You now have additional capacity that you can either take on additional work or reduce the staff of that particular business unit. That's due to the next item, which is a reduction in manual effort, right? You can quantify this directly, and we often do it here in some of our ROI case studies. Fewer minutes spent on intake, fewer minutes spent reading lengthy documents, fewer minutes spent writing letters, and fewer reopening of your original decisions, which point to an error, right? It's the next best thing to, of course, making an error is finding it and correcting it, but you really always want to avoid it. That's going to translate into flexible staffing without hiring more headcount. The compliance risk avoidance, that's often one of the biggest hidden ROIs. Why is that? There's 2 reasons. One is it's not necessarily measurable unless you've already been getting penalties. Then of course we'll count those hundreds of thousands or millions and be able to count them all for 1 or 2 years to avoid those. But you don't really build into a model $1 million penalty every year where you just assume you're going to be shut down by a government. So it's not really something that you anchor to. It has to be fixed, not planned for year over year. Every missed deadline, every incorrect letter, every missing rationale will create that audit exposure. We're checking for those things throughout the case with AI, and it immediately will find those breakdowns and it'll avoid those millions in penalties. This last one is one that is very important these days in an area where there's been a lot of staffing reductions. There's been pressures on wage that have really pushed for hard decisions. It's this concept of scalability without cost explosion. So in many of the business cases that I've authored throughout the year, the concept wasn't how can we lay off a bunch of people? It's how can we grow without hiring more people? So what does that mean? As volumes fluctuate during enrollment or formulary changes, AI allows the plans to scale up or down operationally without the cost structure of temporary staffing or overtime. So you can somewhat normalize some of those spikes by taking care of some of that easier work. What that also means is as we had counted those minutes, as we mentioned, from reducing the manual cycle time of those cases, reducing the minutes spent doing intake and everything, that translates into capacity where you can now grow your business without adding more staff. And what does that also mean? You can save money in existing lines of business without laying people off. You're able to retrain and retain that talent, which we just mentioned. Losing that travel knowledge every year through some type of a churn in employment is never going to be. When you combine these elements, ROI becomes undeniable. It's not a hypothetical future state, but it's a real measurable operational improvement that you can actually see in the first 90 to 100 days.
So, I have one last question for both of you. If there's one key takeaway that you want our audience to remember from today's discussion, what would it be? We'll start with you, Anurag.
Thank you, Prerna. So, if I could leave the audiences with one key message, it would be this: like, AI is not here to replace people, it is here to elevate them. It's about shifting from doing work to optimizing work. When we implement AI thoughtfully, it can turn their operations into intelligent ecosystems, agile, compliant, and truly member-centric. I would say start small, automate what's repetitive, measure the impact, and then scale with confidence. Because in pair operations, speed, compliance, and experience area are not competing goals anymore. AI allows you to achieve all of these three simultaneously.
What about you, Alex?
Sure. If I had to leave our audience with one message, it's this, and it's that AI is no longer about experimentation. It's about operational advantage. And I've reshared a article from Gartner multiple times that's really starting to point in the difference of the AI innovation versus the AI adoption. And you're seeing this gap continue to broaden. And what that means is tools that are available to payers today have been created but not implemented. We have tools that we're creating so quickly at Newgen that we have not implemented some of them because the laws were just written months ago. That's how quick we are developing. That's how quick AI is moving. So the payers that are winning today are the ones who start small but make meaningful change. They embed that AI directly into workflows instead of adding another tool. You take away nothing. Remember my gem analogy that you have to embed this in a holistic manner. It's not going to be something you can just purchase and expect results. That's why the discipline of a business case and an ROI analysis makes sense. Measure your operational impact early. I love, and I know it takes an extra few weeks or so to do those time studies. Understand what your current state is, map that out so that when the new state comes, you know exactly how much you have saved. Build that adoption roadmap that grows with the team, knowing that it's not a big bang, both from a cultural perspective, but also from a risk perspective. As we've mentioned, you start small and incremental. You train these models. You start with intake and things that are simplistic and then layer on as you've got the maturity of those business rules. AI lets the payer teams operate with clarity instead of chaos, focus on high-value decision-making, and deliver with a level of speed and consistency that simply isn't possible in manual processes. This isn't the future. It's happening now. It's happening with your competitors. And the organizations that are embracing this are seeing measurable, compounding ROI that gives them that competitive advantage.
So now let's take few questions from the Q&A panel before we run out of time. So the first question we have is, how do we ensure AI adoption doesn't create compliance risk, especially with CMS audit sensitivity? So,
Sure. And this is a critical question. And it's one that comes up, I think, on every call that we have on Anurag. And it's critical because compliance is the biggest fear when bringing in AI into a regulatory operations. The key is that AI isn't making the final decisions. It's augmenting the reviewer with facts, summaries, pre-built regulatory language. Every output still goes through the human validation loop where appropriate, and it protects the plan from inappropriate automation. The second piece is that AI actually enhances compliance because its standardization is what historically varies from reviewer to reviewer, human to human, intake rep to intake rep. That inconsistent rationale, the incorrect language that's used from CMS, NCQA, or other regulatories, the incorrect calculations of due dates if you don't have a system doing that, if you don't have a bean-by-bean audit trail that ensures that you know every second from open to close of that case, if you don't have the letters that are always 1000% accurate, not with blank placeholders, not with high readability that sounds like it was written by someone with a PhD when it's required to be at a 7th grade reading level. Those are all avoidable mistakes. The irony is that most compliance findings from today are from manual inconsistency, not from technology. The other piece I would mention is one of the things that we have built in at Newgen to our AI model is the AI governance architecture. So one of our layers is actually the governance of your AI tools. And this is a multi-pronged. Number one, it ensures that all the information stays safe and encrypted. And another final question that we often get from our payers is our information being used to train these models? And the answer is you have the ability to set up your generative AI and other tools with an on-premise or a localized cloud that ensures that your data stays separate and distinct from others, not accessible out of the United States or whatever the borders that your health plan is subject to, such as with very stringent Medicaid standards. So what this means is when implemented correctly, AI reduces risk, it doesn't create it.
thank you, Alex. So, we have another very interesting question. Where should health plans start? What's the lowest risk, highest value entry point for AI in tag or in utilization management or somewhere else?
So I can answer that, Prerna, for you. I believe that we should start where the problem is clear, the workflow is repeatable, and the operational value is immediate. So just to answer that in a more elaborative way, the best starting points we consistently see in industry are: one is your AI-driven intake classification. So this removes a major manual bottleneck. It's easy to measure, and you see value in weeks here. Second could be your document summarization for clinical or administrative packets. This is where reviewers instantly benefit because it removes the most time-consuming part of their day, which is searching for relevant information. Third one could be your CMS compliant correspondence drafting. So it is one of the biggest area of rework and audit exposure, and AI dramatically reduces both. So these are low risk entry points because staff remains firmly in control, but the time savings and accuracy improvements are undeniable here. Once the organization gets comfortable, expansion becomes easier for them.
Okay, thank you, Anurag. So we do have few more questions, but we have reached the end of our time today. So thank you, Alex, and thank you, Anurag, for all these insights, and I'm sure our audience will benefit from it. And thank you everyone for joining us today. If you are exploring how to accelerate efficiency and ROI in your payer organization, we would be happy to schedule a demo. Have a wonderful day and thank you for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.